There are three things that separate the strong shock cavalry from the weak. Good mass, to flatten infantry on the charge, high health, to prevent them from dying instantly, and a 20 bonus versus cavalry to let them punch above their weight against enemy horses. You can get all three of these qualities for a pretty low cost of 600 talents. No, I'm not talking about Grivpanvar, and I'm not talking about Hunnic Lancers. I'm talking about the Sarmatian Cataphracts. The Sarmatian Cataphracts are a unit unique to the Alans and only add to the diversity of an already fun faction. Before the latest patch, the Sarmatian Cataphracts were decidedly a flavor unit. They were simply not worth the cost, especially with Germanic horsemen and later noble Alani reigning supreme. But the latest patch has given them an absolutely massive buff. They now have 20 bonus versus cavalry spears in melee, while they only had 10 before. What does this mean? It means Sarmatian Cataphracts beat some of the best shock cavalry in the game in wedge formation. Royal Lancers, the bane of competitive multiplayer, the devastating shock cavalry that made the Burgundians the strongest faction in patch 2, now cause 30% casualties to Sarmatian Cataphracts in wedge before routing. Grivpanvar, arguably the most cost-effective shock cavalry in the game right now, lose to Sarmatian Cataphracts with around 20 men remaining. Even Pushtikban Cataphracts, 240 talents more expensive, barely managed to beat the Sarmatian Cataphracts in a one-on-one engagement. So, what is the mystery behind this magic? What makes the Sarmatian Cataphracts so incredibly deadly? Let's dig a little deeper. At first glance, the Sarmatian Cataphracts seem pretty standard. They have a decent charge bonus of 212, decent armor at 32, and decent health at 230. Their melee attack and morale at 22 and 36 respectively is nothing to write home about. Compared to similarly priced Hunnic Lancers and Grivpanvar, there is nothing that really stands out. All three have 20 bonus spears, with the Grivpanvar having much better charge and armor. But there is one stat that I think is critical to the outperformance of the Sarmatians that is not present in the other two units: melee defense. In the recent patch notes, CA have mentioned that melee defense plays a more important role in one-on-one engagements. While the Hunnic Lancers and Grivpanvar have only 5 melee defense, the Sarmatian Cataphracts have 32. This is why the Sarmatian Cataphracts win against these units and win in wedge formation. They perform incredibly well in extended melee. So what we have with us now is a unit that is a hybrid of shock and melee cavalry. They have the devastating charge of a shock cavalry while somewhat retaining the strength of melee cavalry in prolonged melee. Yet, for a mid-tier cavalry unit, there are bound to be weaknesses. For one, their morale is pretty low. They have only 2 extra morale over the Germanic Lancers, who are 100 talents cheaper. They do not have the heavy mass of the Grivpanvar, nor do they have the scare trait of the Hunnic Lancers. They have only 20% missile block chance, and they have no special abilities. These units then are a no-frills shock cavalry unit that simply gets the job done, no matter what you put it up against. Melee cavalry? Spread them out and charge. They do extremely well. Enemy shock cavalry? Wedge it up and charge, and they will defeat them in prolonged melee. Infantry? Well, we all know how that goes. These units provide insanely cost-effective shock value, and that is why the Sarmatian Cataphracts are a must for any Alani army. Recommended upgrades? Given their relative tankiness for the price, I wouldn't be against putting a max of 2 XP upgrades on them. Boosting their melee attack and morale could be quite useful. Recommended role? All-purpose shock cavalry. Recommended number? 2 to 4 depending on whom you're facing. Sassanids and Huns? Don't bother spending money on noble Alani. Bring 4 of these guys instead. Enemy Germanic factions? Bring 2 to charge enemy infantry. That's it for this episode of the Unit Review series. Leave a like if you enjoyed this content if you want to see more in the future. My name is Blademaster, and stay tuned for more.